Star Wars The Heart of the Jedi by Kenneth C. Flint. Chapter 29. Leia finished tying a handkerchief of her own around Han's head to bandage his wound. Thanks, he said. He looked at the dangling tails of the gaily colored piece of cloth. Kind of flashy, ain't it? I think it makes you look rather dashing, she said, and leaned forward to kiss him hard on the lips in a no-nonsense way. What's that for? He asked. For luck, she said. Yeah, we're sure gonna need it this time. He got up. How's it going, Chewie? The Wookiee was closely examining the door. He shook his head and growled dejectedly. No good, huh? Said Han. Look, let's try some good old force, and I mean the muscle kind. He and Chewbacca strained and grunted as they tried to push the hatch open. It didn't budge. Han stopped abruptly, putting a hand to his lower back. Ow, I think I hurt myself, he said. I'm getting too old for this. Squawks and a tootling sound came from R2. They looked around to it. The little droid had thrust out one of its many maintenance appendages and was preparing to insert the jack at its end into an outlet on 3PO's back. What the heck's he doing? Han asked the Wookiee. Chewie could only scratch his head in a puzzled way. The jack went home. A high-pitched hum came from R2. The lights of the golden droid's eyes flickered, went out, and then came back on, stronger. The little droid removed the plug and withdrew the rod. A faint chuckling sort of sound came from 3PO's mouth. Then his voice spoke, but with a much more familiar and more anxious and familiar tone. Oh dear! What's happened to me? Where am I? His head swiveled around nervously, looking around. 3PO, said Leia, stepping towards him. You're back. Oh, Princess Leia, he said in relief. I'm so glad you're here. Wherever here is. I've had such a disturbing time lately. You were captured and brainwashed, he said. I'd say I'd had a nightmare, he went on. If droids could have such things, I feel oddly... He cut off and did a double take in realization. Did you say captured? Brainwashed? The Empire did it, Han said, looking amazed by the recovery. We thought it was permanent. We thought we'd lost you forever, Leia said, hugging the droid. What happened? How did R2 fix you? It's quite simple, Mistress Leia, he said. R2 is my counterpart. We share everything, including our cognitive modules, in a matter of speaking. Should an emergency arise and damage either of our vital systems, each of us carries a backup set of the other's memory banks and programming. You only had to load them back into me to restore my higher thought functions completely. Though I must admit there are some gaps in my memory. Has anything been happening? Not really, Han said dryly. 3PO, said Leia. It's too much to explain now, but we've been captured by the Empire and are prisoners in one of their sea-going armored transports. Oh my, the droid said in some distress. I hope my own little aberration wasn't the cause. No more than any of our mistakes, said Han, totally out of character, not blaming it on Goldenrod. The Empire's been playing us all for saps, and we're gonna do something about it. Luke's in danger, Leia explained to the droid. The whole balance of the Force may be too. We have to find a way out of here. Master Luke, said 3PO. That is serious. Do you suppose we might... He cut off as a faint vibration shook the ship. What is it? Asked Leia. There came more, like small impacts against the hull from outside, quickly increasing in frequency. Something is hitting us, said 3PO. Quite a number of somethings, in fact. No kidding, said Han. Leia's face had taken an odd, faraway expression. I can feel it, he said. I can hear it in my mind. It's those sea creatures, the Lasguan. They're swarming around the ship. There are hundreds already, and more coming. Great, said Han. What can they do? In the now shaking control room of the armored swimmer, General Contos was at the moment also asking, What can they do to us? I don't know, said a junior officer at the command console. There must be over 1,000 out there. They've surrounded us. Look! Contos moved up beside him and peered at a bank of monitors. External cameras showed various images of bodies solidly packed in around the AT-AT, whipping the water to a white foam with their thrashing tails, as they thrust noses hard against the ship's sides. What's making them do that? He asked. Some type of feeding frenzy, maybe, the officer suggested. They might believe we're food. Brilliant guess, Contos said sarcastically. We'll let them bang away all they want to. Can't do us any harm. But even as he said this, the vibrations of multiple strikes altered to become a much more shuddering, and then a rhythmic knocking sensation. General, they're acting in concert now, the officer said in amazement, pushing back and forth on each side alternately, which is an incorrect use of the word alternately. No, wait, no. I take that back. It is a correct use of alternate. Bad. Acting together, Kanto said. Just fish. They can't be. Look for yourself, the man said sharply. They are. Down in the cell, the prisoners were also well aware of the new rocking motion. They doing that too? Asked Khan. Yes, said Leia. Working together, using the combined powers of the Force as one. They're moving the whole machine. That still doesn't get us out of here, he said. We might be able to use the distraction to escape, though, if we could open the blasted door. I can't rewire its locking mechanism unless I can get inside it. Oh, I believe R2 can take care of that for you, Master Solo, commented 3PO. Han looked in surprise at the droid. Can? Well, why didn't you say so before? You didn't ask before, was the simple reply. Didn't ask, Han said, advancing angrily on the droid. Why, you clanking collection of... Leia called, warning him. Where is our new, kinder Han? Oh, yeah, he said abashed. I forgot. He stepped back from the droid. Sorry, 3PO. Sorry? The golden being echoed in surprise. Master Solo, isn't that rather unusual of you? Well, we've all been through a lot of changes, pal, he replied. Now R2, get to work. Rocking was swiftly growing worse. In the swimmer's control room, the crewmen were holding on to anything to prevent being thrown from their feet or seats. This is intolerable, Kantos raged. Send some stormtroopers out on top. Shoot a few of those things that could chase him away. The order issued, white-armored stormtroopers clambered out through a hatch high up on the metal shell back. They moved down the railings around the edge, only yards above the water, moving with difficulty because of the slope and the rocking. From the positions, a few opened fire on the seething mass below. Blaster bolts tore through the bodies of the sleek creatures. Motionless, floating carcasses began to drift away. Still, the rest persevered, making the craft rock all the harder. A new volley of shots was fired, this time in greater volume. This time there was a response. A long, tapered form leapt from the water, gleaming in the sunlight. The powerful, agile sea creature arched high in its graceful move, sweeping up past the edge of the war machine, striking a trooper's shoulder with its nose before it dove into the sea. He was knocked back, his feet sliding out beneath him. Before he could grab on, he was shooting under the rail, plummeting down to crash on the surging water below. Another and another creature made the leap. 2 more troopers were knocked into the sea. Then several attacks came all at once. Some missed the now warned men, but 2 more struck home. The harried troopers tried to shoot them, but the leaps were too unexpected, too fast. With uncanny accuracy, the sea beings kept striking, knocking more troopers off. And the rocking continued. Inside the AT-AT, R2 rolled back from a hole it had cut in the bulkhead by the door. A bundle of wires and connectors had been exposed there. Ow, said Han, examining these. If I can just cross the right to... these! He pulled 2 wires loose and crossed the tips. The bolt of the door's heavy lock clicked open. Okay, Han told the rest. Now everyone stand back. He cautiously pushed the door open a tiny crack and peeked out. An armed guard just outside was all but being bounced back and forth in the corridor, trying vainly to hold on. Han waited until the man was well off balance and turned the opposite way. Then he threw the door full open and dived out. A tackle brought the guard down. Before he could struggle or cry out, Chewie was on him, knocking him out with the sharp thump of a fist on his head. Han took the guard's blaster, pistol, and got up. The others moved out to join him. Which way? Asked Leia. Let's try up, he said. In the control room, Kantos and his crew watched monitor images of both the fight atop the swimmer and the continued attack of the beings in the water. The numbers of Lazuan seemed to have doubled by this time and were still increasing. They were making the machine heave with great violence, heeling further over with each swing. The troopers are having no effect, General, an officer reported, and we're losing a lot of men. Trapped here against the shore, there's not much more we can do, said Kantos. Take the craft out where we can maneuver. The order was passed. Huge underwater exhaust vents at the craft's rear coughed gray-black fumes into the clear waters, as massive propeller screws began to turn. Inside, the escapees climbed up a ladder to another corridor. Chewie and Han bodily rested R2 up through the hatchway. "You putting on weight, droid?" asked Han, panting from the effort. "One more level," said Leia, pointing to another hatch above. "I think it'll get us out." "Hold it," said Han. Fighting footsteps sounded from up the corridor. Two stormtroopers suddenly charged into view. They pulled up sharply when they saw the others, then moved swiftly to bring the weapons to bear. Not swiftly enough. Two shots from Han knocked both to the ground. Leia went at once to fetch the blaster carbines from the downed troopers, tossing one to Chewie, then she led the way up to the next ladder. She paused as the steady sensation of the rocking was broken somewhat, the ship jerking more spasmodically. "What now?" asked Han. "The swimmer's trying to get away," said Leia. "It's pulling out to sea." "Then let's get moving faster," he said. The ship's powerful screws were churning through the water at full speed now, dragging the heavy vessel back through the swarms of creatures. Its bow cleared the shallows near the shore, and it began to turn. The rocking sensation faded more as the craft pulled free of the bulk of its attackers, but a new vibration began, as if from the engine itself choking and sputtering. In the control room, the crew consulted instruments and monitors. "What's happening this time?" snapped Kantos. "Those things are swimming into the main exhaust vents," reported one astonished crewman. "The exhaust blasts are blowing them back out." "Swimming in?" Kantos said. "What's possessed those fish?" Some way above him, Leia eased up the hatchway onto the roof of the swimmer, poked her head out. Half dozen stormtroopers left were absorbed in watching the sea below. She threw the hatch wide and climbed out, crouching with the gun ready. 3PO came up behind her, then Han dragging R2, while Chewie pushed from below. They had just heaved the little droid up to the outer shell when a trooper spotted them. His hasty shot went over their heads. Leia's return bolt jolted him backwards over the rail. Other troopers opened fire, and the air was suddenly knit with crisscrossing bolts. "Down to the side," said Han, pointing to one area free of troopers. "We gotta get over." He began to move cautiously down the sloped surface of the armor plate, exchanging fire at the same time. Chewie also struggled to hold on to the helpless R2. 3PO, with only metal toes and fingers to grip with, lost his purchase first. "Oh dear, oh goodness!" he cried, sweeping down the incline as if it were his side, and "Oh help!" he screamed as he flew under the rail, sailed far out beyond the ship, before splashing into the sea. Chewie and R2 went next. The big Wookiee took out a post of the rail as he went through it, and belly flopped into the waves. R2 shot outward like a fired bullet before arching into the water. The image of the little band's struggle on the vessel's topside was meanwhile being observed on the monitor below. "General, the prisoners have escaped," the watching officer reported. "Never mind that," another man said sharply. "General, those fish are really jamming themselves into the vents now. The combined strength of them is fantastic. They're dying, but their bodies are plugging the holes." "Let them die," Kanto said callously. "You don't understand," said the other more urgently. "They're backing up the exhaust. The engine pressure is building up." Values were already blowing, filling the engine compartment with... It should be valves, not values. Valves were already blowing, filling the engine compartment with fumes and smoke. Crewmen were beginning to scramble madly for safety as the pressure indicators rose towards the danger zone. Pressure to the danger zone. Sorry, I had to do that. On top of the seagoing transport, Han and Leia had safely reached the rail. "Blazwan," she said. "They're sacrificing themselves to stop the swimmer." That's the wrong there. They're possessive instead of they are. They're plugging its exhaust vents now. "That'll blow the engines," said Han. He ducked a blaster bolt and returned a snap shot that picked the man off. "We gotta get off this thing." The control room, an officer cried, "General, the pressure's reached critical. We have to..." An explosion shook the machine hard, throwing Kantos down. It was followed by another, bigger one. On top, Leia yelled, "Go!" to Han. "What about you?" he said. "Water's not exactly your thing." "I'll be all right," she said. With that, he shoved her off, took a deep breath, leapt after her. Behind him, an internal explosion blew up through the hatchway in an erupting geyser of flame. Another explosion within the armored monster's bowels took engines and fuel up in one final massive blast, just as he hit the water. The metal shell ruptured up and out, spewing debris and sparks far out around to shower down. Water rushed into the gap. The submersible made a final dive. In moments, only a thinning cloud of steam and some drifting remains showed the spot where it had vanished. Han came spluttering to the surface, where the big hand of Chewie grabbed Leia to hold her afloat. A number of the sea creatures were already nosed in tightly around the two droids, holding them up. Han paddled beside Leia to give her more support. "I've been practicing," she said with a smile, but Han thought she looked a little pale. "What about you, Goldenrod?" Han said, looking around. "All in one piece?" "Other than having water seeping in my vitals," 3PO complained. "Okay then, friends," Han said to the creatures. "Better get us back into shore. We've still got to get Luke." Luke had the Imperials well into the temple's maze by this time with no incident. But as they came cautiously through yet another opening, and started down another corridor, the sight of what lay ahead brought them up short. Pit filled the way from side to side. They moved up to it. It was a good 50 feet wide, much too far for any leaping or easy bridging. They peered over its edge. It vanished into darkness far below. "Go try another way," Marcus said simply. "Sorry," said Luke. "No other. I've got to go this way. It's a test." "What kind of test? Have you the power to jump it?" "Not me. No, it must be something else. Let me think about it." Darkus signaled the others back and they left Luke alone at the pit's edge. He considered hard, focusing on the problem. A great hole was before him, or what seemed like a great hole. Another memory came to him. This one was of Obi-Wan on the Millennium Falcon, teaching him how to parry an attack with the lightsaber. He handed Luke a helmet with a solid metal visor closed in front. "Oh, put this on," he suggested. Luke donned it, but with the blast shield... Luke donned it. "But with the blast shield down, I can't see a thing," he protested. "Your senses can deceive you," Obi-Wan said sagely. "Don't trust them." "Don't trust them," the real Luke repeated as the memory faded. "Trust the Force." He stepped to the very brink of the pit, closed his eyes, lifted a foot, put it out over empty space. "He's going to..." one of the twins began, starting forward to stop Luke. Darkus pulled him back. "Let him go. It's his test." "Trust the Force," Luke said again with full conviction. He shifted his weight forward. His foot went down and stopped, as if on hard ground. Another step, another, and he was striding out across seemingly thin air. In moments, he had safely reached the far side. As he did, the hole simply vanished like another mirage, leaving the solid rock floor of the corridor. Darkus stepped up to where it had been, gingerly put a foot down, and drew it back. "Well, are you coming?" asked Luke. "Troopers first," Darkus ordered. First one to the spot hesitated, then stepped out. The ground stayed solid. He went forward, thrust following. "How much further?" High Admiral asked Luke as he reached him again. "Not far enough," Luke said, eyeing the lightsaber swinging on Darkus's belt. Darkus noted the look. You'd like a chance to use this, wouldn't you?" he said, smiling and patting it. "Just don't forget that won't help save your friends." "Don't worry," he said darkly. "I won't."